Hello everybody, my name's Ryan and I'm a driving instructor, and today, car names. Car names. Why am I making a video about car names? Well, I did a video about a mythical 2025 Vauxhall Frontera. I made up the name because it was fun, because the Vauxhall Frontera was a dirty great big car that was made up in the early 90s or something. Now, that actual car was a Chevrolet Suburban, and the Chevrolet may have been making the Suburban since like the 1930s. So it was kind of relevant, not relevant, and it was an old GM model that basically they called Chevrolet, and there was some Frontera stuff, but mainly the Frontera was a European model. I became acutely aware when I returned off my holiday that there really is a 2025 Vauxhall Frontera. But what is it? Well, it turns out that a Vauxhall Frontera from 2025 is the replacement for the Vauxhall Crossland. It's also a replacement for all sorts of other Stellantis products, such as a C3 Aircross or a C4 Aircross or something, a Peugeot 2008, some sort of Jeep. They basically brought this car out as an Opel Vauxhall Frontera, but it's going to be rebadged in many different markets as many different things, retaining that name. Now, it's likely that this new Vauxhall Frontera that is electric and petrol the same way that this Mokka is, it's probably got exactly the same drivetrain as the Corsa, that's got the same drivetrain, the Grandland E, and the 1.2 130 brake horsepower that's also in the petrol Grandland. It's likely to be the same drivetrain. And it got me thinking, if this new, the Frontera is going to be great, because all new cars are great, because they've all got the same stuff in them. So if they've got all the same stuff like aircon, and which used to be a luxury, remember, and windy windows, and they're all electric now, front and back, and electric folding. Remember when you used to never get them and you used to have to go and fold your own mirrors in? Remember that? And Mr. White. So everything across the range now is all safety gear, lane assist, blind spot detection, reversing camera. They're all requirements for 2026 and beyond. Like anti-speeding technology is a legal requirement for all cars. You don't need to have parking sensors, but pretty much they're fitted to everything now. Your bumper has got so much stuff in it that cars have become more complicated, which I also made a video on. So all these new cars have got all the same stuff, but is it going to be an inferior product to the original Vauxhall Frontera? Well, no, because it's got all this tech, if you're into tech. But actually, it's probably got quite a lot less storage space than the Frontera was in the 90s. I kind of hit upon the idea that companies were using old names for new cars. And I think Ford started it kind of with a Mustang, coming out with a Mustang Mach-E, and people thought it was absolute heresy using the Mustang name for a Ford electric car. Why? Yeah, well, it continued that trend with lots of different things, and EcoSport, for example, was a trim level on some of the Ford models, and they brought an SUV out called an EcoSport, but the EcoSport wasn't spectacular. It was just basically a Fiesta on stilts, the same as the B-Max is basically a Fiesta with a big body. So manufacturers are recycling names for all of a sudden. Is the new Puma as good as the old Puma? Is the new Cougar, I know it's spelled different, but is the new Cougar the same as the old one? Are they still making the Cougar? Probably not. But you get the point that they're recycling these names, but are they as good as the original product? Ford, of course, came along with some magnificent names, such as a Capri And there was a massive backlash. Why don't they just call it something else? Why don't they call the Puma, the Cougar, the Capri something else? Realistically, those cars are actually VWs anyway, the same as the Amarok is a Ranger and everything else, just badge engineering. And if you go around a VW, you'll probably find parts from the Ford Motor Company all over it. Manufacturers are trying to sell a nostalgia product. That's what they're trying to do. It's a bit like saying to somebody that was born in like the 70s, like me, of saying, oh yeah, we've got this new computer out and we're going to call it an Amiga. And people go, oh, that's amazing. Or a Mega Drive. Yeah, great. It's like telling somebody who was born in the 90s that they're going to relaunch the PS2 or 3 or something because they remember it. It's a bit of a silly game, I think. I think that manufacturers could come up with new names to fit their new products. I think that also, though, what became Stellantis, which was a combination of about 25 different companies, I think they're realising that they need to thin out the lines and probably concentrate on core, which is probably Opel, which of course is Vauxhall in the UK. And I can see that they won't ditch Vauxhall in the UK now, but I can see them sort of eroding other brands. You don't see, DS was massively popular with the DS3. That was a big deal because they called it the Citroen DS3 or something like that, harking back to using the DS name from many years ago. And you think, yeah, you're going to use something else and maybe invent an AX Renault using the Renault 5, for example, but at least the Renault 5 is a little electric car and the old Renault 5 was a little petrol car. So I kind of see what they're doing. I know that it's all to do with naming, but it just caught me out that I'd made a jokey video about the Chevrolet Suburban, and it turns out that, yeah, they are making a Vauxhall Frontera. I think it's a bit of an odd name, to be fair, for a medium SUV. They're calling it a medium SUV. Is it any... No, it's not really all much bigger than this, except it's probably got a bit more space in the boot. And to be fair, it probably needs another 6 to 8 inches behind the driver's seat when it's fully all the way back to give the passengers some room, really. I think they're making a lot of these cars where they don't really think about space. An electric car, right, theoretically, doesn't really need a bonnet. It's only there for safety. They could conceivably invent an electric car a bit like this car that's parked next to me, which I think is a Citigo, or is it an Up? There's the same car as well. And they could have conceivably invented something like this, but it didn't really have a bonnet, and the front of it just kind of came down like a wedge, and because the motor's sat right down the bottom, they don't need to have that bonnet shape. Maybe they do, I don't know. Maybe there's some design thing out there that says you've got to have a square car now, because they all seem to be square, don't they? Even this one seems to be square. I like the glasses on the front. Tell us what you think about recycling car names. Me, I'm not a big fan, really. I think that companies could be a little bit more inventive. That's how I feel about it. I think they could just become a little bit more inventive and a little bit more helpful. If you like what you see, like, comment and subscribe. It's free, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye for now. No!